Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how to switch from Windows to Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 2,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So let me tell you how to switch from Windows to Mac. Not exactly what to do. I'm not going to show you a list of tips or show you a bunch of things in the interface that are different. Instead, I'm going to talk about how you go about changing if you've been using Windows for years and now you want to use Mac OS. If what you really want to do is just make Mac OS as much like Windows as possible instead of learning how to do things the Mac way, then you're not going to like what I have to say. This video isn't for you. My first bit of advice is not to change anything on your Mac right away. You're going to get a lot of advice and articles and videos out there telling you what you should install to make your Mac work more like Windows. But if you really want to get the benefits of working on Mac OS, you should try to do things the Mac OS way. And that means don't install apps that are going to change how Mac OS works. That's not how longtime Mac users use their Macs. You should at least try to do things the Mac way before installing something to make it more like Windows. Next, try not to map things one-to-one from Windows to Mac. For instance, on the Mac, at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the dock. And it's easy to think of that as the Windows taskbar. But it's very different from the taskbar. The menu bar on the Mac is at the top of the screen at all times. It's not attached to the window. There are a lot of differences like that that mean that you can't just go and say that a menu bar on Mac is like a menu bar on Windows or the dock on the Mac is like the taskbar on Windows. These things don't map one-to-one. They're different kinds of elements. So instead of trying to think, where should I find this element from Windows on Mac, instead just try to learn the Mac interface and see what it can do, and don't try to have any preconceived notions of what each thing should be. Next, it's important to be patient. Don't expect to learn Mac OS and transition over in one day. If you've been using Windows for years, you've gotten used to how it works. It may take days, weeks, or even months to fully transition over. Every day you use it, you'll learn something new and you'll be able to use Mac OS a little bit more efficiently. But expecting to adjust in a day or two isn't realistic. Next, take the time to explore, not while you're actually doing work and need to accomplish tasks, but take breaks and actually play around with the interface. Look at the menu bar. Look at the different items there. Explore each menu and look at the different submenus to see what's available. Do this in the apps you're using. And if weeks from now you start using a new app, explore that menu as well. Look in the windows and look in the toolbars and see what buttons are there and what they do. If you move your pointer over a button, usually you'll get a little description of what it does. There are also context menus. When you control click, right click, or two-finger click on a trackpad, a different item like this folder here for instance, you'll get a context menu. There are context menus for almost every kind of element in every kind of app. Take the time to explore these things even if you're not looking for a particular function right now. See what's available. Go to the Apple menu and go to System Settings and then look through all of the different parts of System Settings. You may find something you don't need right now, but hopefully you'll remember it for when you need it later on. A great way to learn things in Mac apps is to create sample documents. Not enough people do this. When you have free time, go into an app, say like Pages here. Create a blank document and then type some text. Explore the different menu items. Try different things. Look through all of the different options here. Look through the sidebars. Play around with a sample document to see what's possible. It's the quickest way to learn new apps. And then continue to do this even after you're using the apps for work. So for instance, if you're working in Pages and you're not sure how to do something, create a sample document in Pages, populate it with some sample text, and try various things there before trying them in the document you're actually working on. It's commonly said that Mac OS doesn't really have documentation. You just sort of naturally know where to go to do things. But of course, if you've been using Windows, that's probably not true. You're going to find things a bit frustrating because they're not like they are in Windows. But it's also not true that there's no documentation. If you go to the Help menu, you'll often find lots of documentation. For instance, here in Pages, you can go to Pages Help and it will open up an entire mini booklet of information here on all sorts of different subjects having to do with Pages. And you can learn a lot from this. And you can also use the search bar here to search for information. This is true almost everywhere. That Help menu is always there. So here I am in the Finder, and you can go to the Finder and you can get help right here. just general macOS help, and you'll get this whole user guide. But it's not just there. In a lot of places like system settings and dialog boxes and apps, you'll often find this little question mark button here. Click that and it will bring up help for whatever it is you're looking at. So here it gives you detailed descriptions of what each of these things does. The main way you're going to learn macOS is by actually using it, browsing the web, answering your emails, creating documents and such. But at the beginning, you should also take the time to learn things you don't need right now. For instance, you can go to my site. I've got just tons of free videos that you could watch and learn all sorts of different things. You may not need that specific technique right now, but it'll be easy to learn it now in a low pressure situation and then be able to recall it later on. And when you learn a tip, it's usually useful beyond the specific example. For instance, one tip you may learn is that when you select a file in the Finder and you go to Edit, if you hold the Option key down, the copy function changes to copy as path name. Now that's useful in itself, but learning that you can hold the Option key down when selecting a menu and get different options will also help you in other cases. So for instance, maybe when you're working in Pages and you go to the File menu and notice there's no Save As, you might remember that holding the Option key down changes some of the menu items. So you give it a try. And sure enough, the Duplicate item changes to Save As. The tip you learned before about something unrelated gave you the knowledge you needed to accomplish something else later on. And finally, realize that Windows and Mac have this one thing in common. There are things that you can accomplish just with the operating system, with Windows or with Mac OS. And there are things that you need a third-party app to accomplish. But they aren't necessarily the same things across operating systems. You're going to find some things that Windows does on its own, you need a third-party app to do on the Mac. And some things that on Windows you need a third-party app to do, on Mac OS you can do it just with native functionality. When you want to look for a third-party app for the Mac, the first place to go is the App Store app, which is installed on your Mac, and you can browse and search for apps there. There are a ton of third-party apps, so it can be difficult to figure out what the right one is. But usually if you take the time to browse the App Store and you look at some of the apps that are there, you'll notice right away that you've got apps, for instance, with high ratings and lots of them. And these are usually the apps that tons of Mac users use. And usually these apps are also ones that if you search the web, you'll find tons of people giving reviews and also tutorials about them. So it's not too hard to figure out which apps are the main ones that lots of people use to get their work done. So remember to be patient while learning Mac OS. If you were using Windows for years, it's like a trail that you hiked every day. You know every rock and every tree. And now you're hiking a new trail. This can be exciting. There are new things to explore. So remember to take the time to enjoy the learning experience. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.